So, a little bit different for this morning's stretch video. In this video, we're going to be talking about using isometrics, which is when we use a static hold in the contracted part of an exercise. We're also going to talk a little bit about using partial repetitions. So, what is an isometric hold? It's a hold in a position of tension where the muscles are working really hard to hold the position that you're in. Now, this can be at the end of a set, or the start of a set, or even as a standalone exercise, as part of a group of exercises or part of a workout. Most of the time, we want to work our muscles through the full range of motion, the contracted part and the lowering part, the concentric and the eccentric parts of the movement, through a good range of motion to recruit as many muscle fibres as possible, and that is going to give us the most work. But if we want to increase the work of a set, we might use an isometric hold, either to start the set and then go into the movement, or at the end of the set to increase that time the muscles are contracted for and the time under tension. That's going to cause the most microfiber damage in the muscles and therefore increase the potential for progression and improvement, growth and the use of the muscles itself. So, where can we use these? One place I really like isometrics is at the end of a set of glute bridges or hip thrusts. So if it was banded or under load, or even just with body weight, do the set of the movement and then give a good squeeze at the end, focusing all the squeeze into the glutes. That's going to increase the time under tension of the glutes, the time they're contracting for, and the work they've done. Then, from there, another good way to use it, even as a superset using both of these together, is we've just been shortening the glutes into the contraction. Now we can use an isometric hold in the squat position to lengthen them again. And this might be a goblet squat, holding the weight, and then into the movement once more of the squat. It's really worked the glutes, and it's also primed the glutes to do most of the work in that goblet squat. If we then keep the hips back, don't take the tension off the glutes, don't come quite right to the top, we're really going to focus all that work onto the glutes. You can do this with the hip thrust or a glute driving machine as well, and that's coming up now. One thing we need for isometrics is to be in a really strong and stable position. Another good place I found to use them is with the flies, but it needs to be a machine or on cables. That's because with dumbbells, as we come to the top of the fly position, imagine I'm lying down now, that's a really strong position. We're not actually getting much extra tension to the muscles. With cables, as we're bringing it round, that top position is the maximum contraction. Same if we're sat in a machine, we're coming around, maximum contraction. Adding an isometric hold at the end of the set is really going to fire up the amount of muscles getting used in the pecs, the pec minor, and really add to the work of that set. That's coming up now. Another good place to use an isometric hold is actually with the leg curl machine. Now it needs to be a seated leg curl where you're fully into it, really nice and tight. Stability is really important for any exercise, but one where we're loading up an isometric, we really want to be able to get in a really good position. So a seated leg curl machine with its handles at the front, and adding a hold into that set at the start can be super effective. I'm going to add that as a YouTube link to the description. Okay, on to partial movements. Usually we say, as I said at the start, maximum movement or the correct movement range for that particular exercise. But there's a couple of places where you can put those in effectively, because we're looking at just continuing the contraction past the point where we can't do the full contraction anymore to increase the work of the set. You've seen that just now on the leg curl, the seated leg curl. We're going for a hold, full range of movement reps, and then partial reps, just to really maximise the tension we could possibly get into the hamstrings for that particular exercise. Another place to use them, and it's very selective, is with lateral raises. Our lateral raises only need to come to the horizontal anyway. We're focusing on bringing the deltoid up into the contracted position. If you then drop the weight back a little bit, as you fatigue on the full range, just that little extra movement coming out, as long as we focus on moving out rather than shoulders up, we can carry on. Or we could do something called a 21 with lateral raises, which is where we actually start in the top part of the movement, which would be the hardest place to hold it. You're going to drop the weight back a little bit when you attempt this. Then, full range, 7 of each. So we've got a little bit more movement because we're bringing it down, taking the tension off and then back in. And then after that, net that 7, partials out again. In the bottom half of the range. And that could maximise the length of the set and the tension into the deltoids. Another place we've used this really well is in a machine for a chest press. And in this one, what you do is you start with the partials. You start with the bottom range or top range, just doing partials, maybe 5 or 7 again. Then you go to the top range, 5 or 7 again, then into that full range of movement. So you're increasing the amount of work you've done on the muscles by extending the set with these partial movements. As was shown with each of these, also doing full range of movement within the set as well. That's really good, and that's what we should be aiming for some of the time. These are some techniques that can be added in to extend sets and facilitate progress with your workouts.